Hi, friends. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're having a great day today. This week we're doing our favorite illustrator awards. We're picking out our favorite book with the very best pictures. Today, I've got a wonderful book to share with you. It's a little bit long, so we're just going to read one book today. It's called Ada Lovelace, Poet of Science. This is such a cool book. Let's look at it. Oh, here's the opening pages. Long, long ago, on a cold winter day, a lonely little girl walked from room to room in a big, old, dark country house. Her name was Ada Byron, and she was looking for something to do. And that's Ada right there. Ada was good at imagining things. She imagined it would be fun to fly. Then she went about it in a scientific way. First, she studied the flight and the anatomy of birds. She decided her wings would be like theirs, only larger in proportion to her size. She would build the frames out of sturdy wire so her wings would be strong, and then cover the frames with oil rubbed silk so they would also be light. Finally, she designed a harness to attach the wings to her back. She thought it would be fun to fly from house to house delivering the mail. She'd need to bring a bag for carrying the letters, a map, and a compass for navigation. She decided to write a book about her flying project, illustrated with pictures and diagrams. She would call it Flyology. And when she had finished that, Ada had a plan to build a steam powered flying horse. Her mother, Lady Byron, was away at the time, so Ada sent regular updates on their flying project. She signed the letters, "Your affectionate young turkey," or "Your affectionate young carrier pigeon." She had never been so happy. But Lady Byron was worried. Ada seemed overexcited. Worse, she showed dangerous signs of too much imagination. In other words, she was acting just like her father. Ada's parents were as different as chalk and cheese. Her father, the famous poet Lord Byron, was a worldwide celebrity, the rock star of his time. Her mother, Lady Byron, was interested in math and science. She was rational, respectable, and strict. The marriage only lasted a year. That's her mom's picture. Ada never knew her father. He left England soon after she was born and died in faraway Greece when she was 8. She wasn't even sure what he looked like. His portrait had been covered with a cloth. Being Lord Byron's daughter shaped Ada's childhood in important ways. Ada's mother wanted her to be calm and rational, not emotional and creative like her father. She hoped the study of math and science would suppress her daughter's imagination. So Ada was given a world-class scientific education. Her imagination was not harmed in the least. Ada loved machines. She lived during the Industrial Revolution, when things that were once made by hand, from ribbons and spoons to paper and glass, were being mass produced in factories. When Lady Byron suggested a trip to see the new factories, Ada was thrilled to go. Everything they saw was interesting, but by far the best was the mechanical loom designed by a Frenchman, Joseph Marie Jacquard. It could automatically weave cloth in any design you could imagine, from a simple plaid to fancy brocade to actual pictures of peoples, trees, and animals. But how did the loom know which pattern to weave? That was the amazing part. The design was translated into a pattern of holes punched into heavy paper cards. Long chains of these cards were fed into the loom, giving it instructions. To change the design, you only had to change the cards. Ada was amazed. It was a brilliant idea, and not just for weaving cloth. Why not use punch cards to direct other machines for other purposes? Ada was onto something. Soon she would see how right she was. At 17, Ada's quiet childhood came to an end. Her mother took her to London for the summer social season, a round of teas, dinner, and dances. Ada was dazzled by the gilded ballrooms and the beautiful ladies in their gleaming satin gowns. Everyone wanted to meet Ada because she was Lord Byron's daughter. But Ada didn't know what to say to them. She didn't care about fashion or fox hunting or court gossiping. Then she went to one of the weekly gatherings at the home of Charles Babbage, the great mathematician and inventor. All the interesting people went to his parties, from the writer Charles Dickens to the scientist Charles Darwin. As Ada moved through the crowd from one amazing conversation to another, she grew almost dizzy with excitement. They talked about important things: astronomy and politics, literature and art, and the latest engineering marvels. These were her kind of people. A few days later, Ada went to see a working portion of Babbage's new invention, a calculating machine called the difference engine. It could solve arithmetic problems at the turn of a crank. People called it a thinking machine, but Ada knew better. The intelligence was not in the machine itself, but in the genius of its designers. Ada felt an instant connection with Charles Babbage. She even dreamed of one day helping with his important work, and so began one of the most remarkable friendships in the history of science. But Lady Byron had other plans for her daughter. Ada didn't need a profession. What she needed was a husband. So at 19, Ada married a wealthy aristocrat, William Lord King. When he became the Earl of Lovelace, Ada Byron King changed her name once again. She would go down in history as Ada Lovelace. That's her. And that's their new house right there. And it says on the gate, Lovelace. By the time she was 24, Ada had two children running wild in the nursery and one still crying in his cradle. But she hadn't lost sight of her dream. She just postponed it. Now, at last, her moment had come. Babbage was working on a revolutionary new machine called the analytical engine. It would be powered by steam. There was no electricity in those days, and it could do more, much more than just add and subtract. The analytical engine could run on any kind of mathematical calculation and then store the results for later use. Best of all, he had borrowed Jacquard's idea of using punch cards to direct his engine so it could easily change from one operation to another. In short, Charles Babbage had invented the first fully programmable all-digital computer. But there was a problem. So far, his engine was just a plan on paper. It would cost a fortune to build to raise that kind of money. Babbage needed publicity. This was Ada's chance to help. An article had been written about the analytical engine, but it was in French. Ada translated it to English so it could be published in Britain. Then Babbage asked her to add some footnotes at the end, explaining what an all-purpose computing machine could do. She was perfect for the job. She understood how the engine worked. She was a good writer, and she had the vision to see, better even than Babbage himself, how much more a computer could do besides just processing numbers. It could work with any kind of symbol, from words to musical notes. Ada imagined the analytical engine writing text, composing music, reproducing images, and even playing games like checkers or chess. But before the machine could do any of those things, the symbols and rules of operation had to be changed into digital form. Today, we call that programming. Ada needed to explain to her readers exactly how that could be done. As an example to work with, she and Babbage chose an extremely complicated series of calculations called the numbers of Bernoulli, and then Ada showed step by tiny step how they could be coded for the machine. Finally, after 9 months of meticulous work, Sketch of the Analytical Engine, invented by Charles Babbage, was published. Ada's notes by the translator were almost 3 times as long as the original article, and far more important, yet she wasn't given credit by name, only the initials AAL. She was afraid her work wouldn't be taken seriously if people knew it was written by a woman. Let's look at this. Look at all of her process there. Ada didn't care. The girl who had once dreamed of flying, who longed to do something important with her mind, had soared at last. She had looked into the future and imagined a computer age that wouldn't arrive for another 100 years. And in demonstrating how to code the numbers of Bernoulli, Ada Lovelace had written the first computer program ever published. She was our first computer programmer. The end. That was a great book. I wanted to look at this with you, though, because Ada Lovelace is a real person. And I wanted to read just a little bit from the back. That's Ada right there. And I wanted to read just a little bit back here for you. It's this author's note. Ada did not live to write another scientific paper. Sadly, she passed away at the age of 36. Though their partnership marked the beginning of the computer age, there's not a direct link between their work and the development of the modern computer. Babbage's groundbreaking invention and Ada's visionary writings were forgotten. Years later, Ada's translation and notes resurfaced. We know that Alan Turing was one of the original people to find it. Later, Howard Mark from IBM read them too, and he said, if Babbage had lived another 75 years later, I would have been out of a job. And that's really silly. He's the CEO of IBM. Over here, it talks about controversy with Ada Lovelace, and it said about 25 years ago, several scholars raised the question of whether Ada really wrote the notes or that Babbage did it for himself. Certainly they worked together, but no one who has read the many lectures they exchanged or the permanent sections of Babbage's biography can doubt that Ada was the true author. So that's Ada Lovelace right there. That was a great book. It was called Ada Lovelace, Poet of Science. Well, I hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, friends.